Welcome to Rebel Finance School. We are super excited to have you here. Uh, if you've ever thought it's too late for me, like, am I too old to be able to do this? I've only just found out about this. And having run the tour of the UK and the tour of New Zealand, the Great Pie Tour, people have been saying to us, no one taught me this stuff. I wish I'd found out sooner. And then we start to get comments of, well, it's too late for me. Just save the kids. And I'm like, what are you telling us? It's too late for you. It's never too late. And then we have this thing of people thinking it's too late. And they say I can't do this. I found out about it in my 60s. I found out about it in my 50s. We have people in the 40s saying it's too late for me. I can't find out about it. Even the other day, Katie, you had someone in their 30s saying they were too old.
Yes, she thought she was behind the curve and she was 31, which she's a spring chicken, isn't she?
Which I am sure everyone on the chat is laughing at, like she's still got plenty of years, but it's quite interesting to look at. So what I would like you to do is before we start, we're going to do a test to see if it's too late for you. I would like you to A, go to a mirror, or B, hold up your mobile phone in front of your face. So hold up your mobile phone in front of your face, and I would like you to breathe on it. Go. If it steams up, it's not too late. If it doesn't steam up, I think you should definitely seek medical help immediately. But if you're still breathing, it is definitely not too late. And we hear this universal story of, I wish I'd known this earlier. I wish I'd been taught more. But we are where we are, and we have to build from here. Now, as we get going, we have two very special guests tonight, which we are super happy to have with us. We have Bill and Jackie from the podcast Catching Up to Fi. Welcome to the show, Bill and Jackie.
Well, thanks, Alan and Katie. It's good to be back with you again.
We are super excited to have you here. And didn't you just hit 1 million downloads for your podcast?
Yeah, we first started in February 2023. We are the only ones, as far as we know, in the niche for late starters, emphasis on starters, not on late. It's a mindset, money, and life podcast for late starters of any age. Just like you said, there's 30-year-olds, there's 40-year-olds, there's 50-year-olds. I'm 58, I'm 59 now, almost 60. And I started at 50. So we're here to tell everybody it's entirely possible. And our podcast is geared towards telling you, helping you, encouraging you to join us on the journey.
Yeah, and we certainly felt that way at some point, but we finally made it over the mountain.
You have made over the mountain, which we're going to come on to. Let's start with Bill. Bill, when did your journey start? Where did you find out about finances? When did you come to this stuff, and how did you feel when you started?
Well, by way of introduction, my professional life is an emergency physician. And so I learned how to take care of people's health emergencies, but not their wealth emergencies until late in life. I had delayed gratification in my 20s, didn't really start earning anything. My big boy paycheck, as I say, in my 30s. I didn't learn to partition it. I didn't learn to save first and spend last. I didn't know, in America, we have the 401k. I didn't really know what that was or to maximize it. And so I got caught in this funnel of life, as I call it, where for about 20 years, it was just running on the treadmill, paycheck to paycheck, living the rich life without living a wealthy life, accumulating assets. You know, we accumulated more things and travel and houses and cars, all the big rocks that I'm sure you'll talk about in your course, and not being prudent, not focusing on our values. And then at 50, I woke up and realized nobody's going to do this for me. I have to save myself. And our money had been with a private bank. They were supposedly doing it for us, but they let us sell at the bottom of the market in 2008, and we missed out on a lot of that bull market from 2008 to almost now, really, until about 8-10 years of it, where we were house poor, paying a lot for a house, and savings poor, and losing out on that compounding. A lot of people, reached FI through those bull market years starting in 2008 because they were aggressive savers. Well, one of the reasons we didn't is we weren't. So I woke up at 50 to shock and awe and sadness and regret and fear, a lot of the emotions that you feel, and we'll talk about overcoming those today.
Thank you, Bill. It's really interesting. A couple of thoughts. So for the UK people, a 401k is a SIP or a workplace pension. So we have like a British version of that. There's also a New Zealand version as well, which is called the Kiwi Saver. So those kind of things are available all around the world.
It's the saving for retirement, the stuff that you can't get to until you're later in life.
Exactly. And then we had a couple of comments about like there's people on the call at 60s, 70s, 80s and beyond. Is this message for everyone, Jackie? Or is it just working for 59-and-a-half-year-olds like Bill?
No, I think it is for everyone because there is a point that you get in your life, perhaps the 70s and 80s, where you start thinking about legacy. And I like to look at that as the changes that you make and the things that you do to improve your life. It has a compounding effect for the younger people in your life, whether it's your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, or just someone younger in the community. So until the day you die, as you're still able to breathe on this phone, you are in a position to change things, even if it's only marginally. And when for the older people that I'm around, I seem to have a lot of them that are so sharp in their mind that I'm still learning from. And I would hope that they would not stop sharing that and pouring into other people and not keep it to themselves. So it's never too late. If you can improve your life by this much, if you can improve your satisfaction by this much, or touch someone else by this much, isn't it worth it? I mean, I'm hoping that I will have that little extra motivation until the day that I die. So it's never too late. And I'm looking forward to the days where even if I'm older, I can't move as fast as I used to, I don't talk as fast as I used to, that I'm still making a difference. So yeah, it certainly does matter. So for the 70 and 80-year-old, look, you learn some new technology, you got on Zoom, you are doing something that wasn't there your whole life. You're learning something new and you're sharing some of the new stuff that you're learning.
And
You'll be
then I'd like to
surprised
add too that it's more about financial wellness. People talk about financial independence, but you make these steps and you build security, you build financial power, you build financial resilience. You may not get to full financial independence on your own right without Social Security or a backstop, which we can't forget about, but you will sleep better at night knowing that you've got financial reserves, your emergency fund, and taking it through the steps to financial wellness, which is just like taking care of your health.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be surprised how those small changes make such a big difference to, like you said, Bill, your well-being, your confidence. Just knowing and understanding these things has a really big impact on people's lives, and we've seen that time and again.
So question for Bill, when you said the word woke up, when you woke up to finances, how did that feel? What happened? Run us through those different bits.
Well, I woke up because they turned 50. A lot of people wake up, especially in our community, because of a financial or health shock. We have a lot of women in our group, about 75% women, because there is gray divorce and they're getting divorced in their 40s or 50s. And just like my mother was in her 50s when she got divorced. She had to work till she was 70, but the best gift she gave us was she became financially independent and has never been, reliant on our finances for her well-being. So she did it. And I didn't necessarily learn from that, unfortunately. I had to have my own journey, and it was turning 50. And so there was shock and awe and remorse, regret, and anger. I was like, why didn't somebody tell me this? It was so simple. Save first, spend last, max out your retirement plan. And if my sister, she just clicked in her box, which is she's a professor at a university. And when she started, she had a high risk tolerance, and she just collect aggressive risk for whatever portfolio they allowed. And she didn't look at her portfolio for 20 years. She woke up and realized, oh my goodness, I'm financially independent. So you can, if you just tell somebody something simple as that, check that box, and max out the accounts. You don't have to look at it. And honestly, you shouldn't look at it, because the best portfolios, that when there was a study done to Fidelity, were the ones that had done the best were the people that were dead and hadn't looked at it or messed with it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? The investing strategy of just putting your money in and leaving it. Um, so how did you get over the regret, the anger, and the remorse, Bill, and move to action, taking control of your finances? Did it take long? Did you just think, oh, I'm just going to do this? Like, what changed for you, and what can other people learn from that?
Well, for me, I had a little trouble because I'm a type A physician. And for me to do it, I had to kind of like become a financial advisor to myself. It's not that complicated. And I started it out really complicated. You can read 1, 2, or 3 books, listen to a few podcasts, go through your course, and you will have the knowledge you need to get started. And so I had to take my money out of the private bank. I put it into our Vanguard, and I took control of it, and empowered myself to learn and I started out complex with like 10 different, as you'll talk about, investment classes. And I boiled that back down to 2 or 3. It's really not complex. Keep it simple. And that's what took me a while to learn. I was in analysis paralysis, but I educated myself, which is critical. I asked for help from people that knew better. I joined communities like this one that your audience is doing to sort of get the support I needed and get my questions asked and answered. I think those were some of the critical things I did. And once I was educated, it was a matter of clicking the button. And it can be really hard to drop money into things and make your first investment, to have that knowledge and power to say, okay, I can do this. Clicking the button, you just got to get to that point. Once you click it, you just keep clicking it, you learn, and you're going to make mistakes. I did, and you can recover from them. It's a progressive, recurrent process. You don't have to be right. As Jackie says, what is it, Jackie, that you say? Perfection.
Precision is not required. Precision is not required.
And perfection is the enemy of enough or good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love those phrases. Those such good mantras to remind ourselves. Precision is not required. Just kind of get on with it. Don't aim for perfection. And I just wanted to jump in and say as well that Bill and Jackie might be mentioning terms that you're not really familiar with, like 401ks and SIPs and how to invest and things like this. That's the whole purpose of the course that you signed up to as well. And we're going to go through all of that. The purpose of today was to kind of encourage you and help you understand that anyone, any age can get going. So if there's terms that you don't understand, don't worry, stick with it. This is a process we're going to take you through, and we've got you.
Exactly. And there will come a stage where you go, what is a SIP? And we go, self-invested personal pension. Here's how to open it. And that stage is week 8 of the course, because we have to tackle debt and compounding and investment and asset classes and all of the words that Bill has used during that opening piece. We need to break them all down and help you understand all those elements.
But to keep it simple, you asked what did I do, and I didn't know what a net worth was. And the first thing I do is figure out, where do I stand? How much debt do I have? How many liabilities do I have? How many assets do I have? What really are my expenses? Where is my money going? And what is my current savings? And as you'll say, savings rate. You calculate these few numbers, and I'm sure you'll go through that, and you go, okay, this is my starting point. You've got to figure out your starting point. And then, so that's sort of the pause, because you can't just jump in. You can't just start clicking buttons and investing. That's kind of almost the last step you make, because there's a whole sequence of events that goes into figuring out, what is your risk tolerance? What do you want to do? What are your goals, your dreams? And then you figure out how to work the numbers. The math comes second, is what I'm trying to say.
So
Yeah,
no, go on.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, I think as a natural response, most people, when they wake up, they immediately want to do something. And they might have questions that's probably four steps down the road, like, oh, is this a good allocation to have? Or, just immediately wanting to do something that is hitting it out of the park right away. And so the hard part is just to, like Bill always says, to pause and take a moment to look at where you're at, because that is going to help you to be more efficient and more strategic about, okay, I found my gaps and the things that I'm not doing right. That's what I'm going to go after versus let's throw everything on the wall and see what sticks. But it is hard and unnatural to just take a moment to breathe and to kind of say, let me see where I'm at. Things may not be as bad as I think, or things may be worse than I think, but I just need to digest all of that so I can try to emerge with some type of plan or ideas on what's going to be the most effective or where am I going to get the most bang for my buck?
What I had done was stick my head in the sand. That's the traditional response
Yeah.
to finance is it's too complicated. I can't do
Right.
this. Other people do this. I don't do this for myself. I'm not a DIYer. Well, you don't have to be a DIYer, but you do have to learn the language because finance is a universal language, whether it is English in the world or whatever language, we all have to speak finance. And that's what we're doing here, learning the words in order to make use of the language. And taking your head out of the sand can be really hard. You have to give yourself grace. You have to forgive yourself because you can't move forward until you release the past.
Absolutely, I agree. And I love what you're talking about. You're sort of talking about a before shot, aren't you? Whenever you have any big transformation, whether that's with your body, with your finances, with your health, with anything, it's really cool to have that before shot. Where is my money actually going? How much do I actually have?
Right.
But then as you see that transformation and over the weeks, months, years ahead, you can look back and be like, wow, look at my aftershot. I have made such a big change. And that's why, however painful it might be to step on those proverbial scales, it's such an important first step to understand where you are now.
And learning a new language does not happen in one day. You may be going, what are all these words? You're not fluent in finance yet, but by the end of the 2 week course, you will be
2 weeks.
10 week course, 2 weeks, 10 week
They'll be
course.
lucky to get away 2 weeks.
You'll be staring at other people and going, yes, I know exactly what my SIP is invested. I know what an index fund is. And you'll be speaking an entirely new language, which is very exciting because then you can have really good conversations about where you're going with your finances. Now, Jackie, you have an incredible complexion. You look like you're 25 years old. But where did you start and how did you go on this journey? And you had this thing of like, what makes you think you're different and you could do anything with finances?
Well, thank you. And you know how to make a lady smile, so I appreciate that. So for me, for my story, it's a little bit different than Dr. Bill there, which is why we work so well together on Catching Up to Five, because it basically says no matter where you started, there's always room for improvement. And so for me, especially since I have a worldwide audience here, I started out in poverty, but that's US poverty, because there's plenty of countries where poverty looks different. For me, I was raised by a single dad with 6 kids. He did have a job. We had food on the table every night, but we were on a government assistant program at school where we got free lunch every day because we fell into what was considered US poverty line. And so that's how I started out. So money was always short, and for me, what it represented for me was money was always the obstacle, the thing that was in the way where we couldn't do stuff like we never went camping or to summer camp. Why? Because we didn't have the money. We didn't go to theme parks. We didn't go to Disney World because we didn't have the money. So money kind of became the enemy and a very negative thing. And that's how I saw money. So throughout most of my life, I'm thinking, how do I make sure I'm never in poverty again? So my big aspiration was to be middle class. And so I did manage to go to college after school because that was, to me, one of the most straight lines to making more money. And I ended up getting married right after college. I had a daughter, so I became a mom. And after being married about 12 years, I ended up getting a divorce. And my big wake up call, like Bill was saying, oftentimes there are wake up calls that can almost feel like the pit of our lives at that moment. But it can often be the pivot point where you decided you needed to do something different. And for me, the financial anchor started at that point. That was the cause of me realizing I needed to do something with my money. So both my husband and I, we made about the same salary. We were around the same age. We got a similar company match to our retirement plan. And at that point, I'm in my mid 30s and I had $20,000 in my retirement account and he had $120,000. So he had $100,000 more than I did. Crazy. And it was already a draining, exhausting time where you beat yourself up, you're trying to figure things out, a lot of stress and anxiety. And on top of that, how on earth did this gap happen between what we were saving? And it took about 2 years for me to finally wake up to where I was ready to do something different because I never wanted to feel that financially ignorant again. So that's when I asked myself, which is a hard question to ask ourselves, especially if you're have a family, you've got kids, your whole life is around that nucleus family. So now that's different. So now I'm asking the question, what does Jackie like to do? What do I want to do? And I wanted to learn about investing. As hard as it was, I think in my head, I knew that that had a lot to do with this huge disparity in my 401k and my husband's 401k. So I joined an investment club and I was started to do a lot of things different and it became very curious. And in doing that, I would say I was around 38 where I started maxing out my retirement accounts. In the US, you have an employer sponsored plan, then you can do something called an individual retirement plan that has nothing to do with work. And then in the US, we have something called a health savings account. But anywhere I could save money, I was doing it because I understood the value of compound growth and that you can't save your way to wealth. You have to invest. Just putting it in a savings account was not going to be enough. I know you guys will learn a lot about that throughout the course. So I was running so hard, you guys, away from poverty because when I got divorced, that nagging thought of being back in poverty was really starting to, come to the forefront again. And I was running so hard where I got to the point where I reached financial independence. When I'm finally figuring out how to put all these numbers together, mainly the 25 times my expenses. I got to that point when I was about 47. So it was about 10 years from 38 to 47, 10 years after I woke up. I reached my financial independence number. I wasn't to the point where I was ready to retire because mentally I just wasn't there. What was I going to do? What was my life going to be like? And so I worked 2 more years before I retired, but I retired at 49 with more than 25 times my expenses. I had a good cushion and I felt pretty good about it, but I would have never imagined, poor girl growing up in the South in the US, getting to not just middle class, but really by our standards, if you have $1 million net worth, you're at least in the top 10% in the US. So I think whenever you start to convince yourself that I can do this, it's time for me to do something different, you're going to be moving way faster than you ever thought. And that's what I learned. And even after trying to, I love spreadsheets, a lot of us do in the fire movement, but I had a color-coded spreadsheet 5 years before I retired. Here are my projections. And then after I retired, a couple years later, that's when I realized I didn't have to be such a stickler. I didn't have to be so precise. So precision was not required. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but with every mistake, I learned something. So that was kind of, my journey and just so many lessons in there. And perfect is not one of the big lessons.
Well, you have to
I
share
love
your
that.
numbers, Jackie, because you're very transparent. And if I can toot your horn, Jackie never made over 5 figures in her
Right.
career. And she retired with a double comma club over $1 million. So you have to understand it is entirely possible on a lower to middle class income to
Right.
do this. I'm a high income professional. That's more money, more problems, really. I'm still working. I've got on this generally 10 to 15 year journey, I've got about 3 more years before I reach a little bit more than a standard FI number because of our problem with higher expenses as a dual physician family. But what you need to understand, as you'll talk about in the courses, I went from a 8% savings rate. I was a single digit saver. And I didn't start from zero, but I didn't really know where I was starting. And overnight, once we learned to plug the leaks in our finances, as you'll learn to sort of, where did all my money go? You'll track it and you realize, I don't need to do all this. We went to 30 to 40% savers within a year, and our lifestyle really didn't change. And I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Where was all this money going? And yet we became empty nesters, which is kind of a superpower for late starters. We were at our high income, peak income years, which is another superpower for late starters. But it was amazing how fast I got on the journey too. And there's articles that you'll hear about from Mr. Money Mustache about the shockingly simple math behind early retirement. The journey is the same for everybody, whether it's early retirement or on-time retirement or midlife retirement. You can't, unless you increase your savings rate astronomically, that's one of your levers. That's one of your superpowers. But for us, it was important to lead a balanced life. We didn't want to frugal down to a 60, 70, 80% savings rates by like some of the early savers would do in the FIRE movement, because we didn't want to lose out on life and the experiences. So our sweet spot was around 40%. Living on one income, for example, if you're a dual income family. These are the rules of thumb that you can use. And if you can do that, you're in that 10 to 15 year journey.
So question for you both, because a couple of people asked, and it's really interesting. What is compounding? And does compounding work at any age? Or is there a point where compounding doesn't work?
Well, Jackie's the CFP. She's the financial advisor. So I'll turn that one to her.
Yeah, it's a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. I think that's offered in other countries as well. But I got that credential after I reached my financial independence number and retired. So it wasn't the reason why I was able to retire. So compound growth is basically the increase of your money on top of your money. So it's probably better done as an example. Okay. If you have $100, okay, and it grows by 10%. Now you have $110, right? So now the 10% growth is based on the $110, and it just keeps going and going and going. Now, rule of thumb that helps make this so easy is roughly, if you're invested in the stock market, your money is growing. It's something called the rule of 72. And at about every 7 years, your money doubles. And so if you've got $10,000 today, in about 7 or 8 years, you'll have $20,000. And it just keeps growing. It's your money on top of your money. And the beauty of it, it just naturally will work based on what you're invested in. So that's what compound growth is. What was the second question?
Does it work?
Well, I have an example there for you too, which makes it really easy to see. You can ask your audience, do you want $1 million today? Or do you want the sum of starting with a penny today, doubling every day for 30 days? Which would you want? The penny that doubles for 30 days or $1 million? A lot of people pick the million, that money today. If you get 100% return on a penny every day for 30 days, you're going to end up with about $5 million. And you want to pick the penny compounding over the $1 million today. So compounding is a powerful tool. It really hits home towards the exponential growth in the later years of compounding. You may not get as much of it as a late starter because you're in a 10 to 15 year runway. And if you're starting at 45, you're not going to see the compounding that a 25-year-old would see. There's the other example of if you start saving at 20 and save, say, $500 a month for 10 years, and then the other person starts at 30 and saves $500 a month until they're 60, who's going to have more money at the end of the day? Well, the person that started saving in their 20s and saved only for 10 years will end up with more money. So we don't have that powerful tool as much. But remember, you're going to live to 80 or 90 years old potentially. So when you start at 45 or 50, you have that 40-year runway. So that's why you never give up, and you always start today, because you will have compounding as you know, in that 10 to 20 years. And if you're prudent with your spending rate, you'll see it grow. And you know, I can't tell you how important that is, but you have to look at the long view. I mean, Alan and Katie will talk to you about, you know, it's the long, you've got to look at the long term as an investor, not the short term.
Right. Because
Absolutely. Best
yeah, what
time.
happens? Yeah, I'm sorry. What happens in a year is not going to matter much. And not even just yourself, but if you have kids, grandkids, or somebody younger, like I just found out I'm going to be a grandmother. So as soon as my granddaughter is born, give me her social security number so I can start a 529 or other investment accounts for her, because I know she is going to have a long time for that money to grow. So I'm not just thinking about me. I'm thinking about how can I provide seed money for other younger people in my life. And I have 11 nieces and nephews where I've done something similar for.
This is amazing. Yeah, I love it, because the best time to start for all of us was like when we were 20. The second best time to start is now.
Now.
Right.
And
Right.
Bill and Jackie are American. You might recognize from their accents.
No, they're American?
I didn't know if they realized. I thought I'd just call it and say they're talking about dollars, but the same principles apply regardless of what currency you're in. So if you're in the UK and you're used to dealing with pounds, whenever they
Correct.
say dollars, just imagine they're saying pounds. It's the same thing. The same idea of compounding works if we're talking about dollars versus pounds versus rupees versus Malaysian ringgit. Like the same concepts apply. So when you hear someone say a certain currency, don't let that put you off. It's exactly the same in any currency around the world.
And I'm sure you guys have a good compound calculator that you share throughout the course where you can just plug in numbers like, hey, if I put in $50 a week every week for 40 years, how much will that be?
We really
You know,
should
whatever
have
your
that, Jackie.
currency
You're
is.
right. We really should have that. So that will be on the website within not the hour, maybe.
And I do have a good one for you. And a lot of the calculators, if they're thinking globally, they should allow you to adjust the currency in which you want to see the results.
Yeah. And it's the same. If you found one that was dollars, just imagine there's a pound sign in the front. It's the same idea.
Right.
You don't have to convert it to different currencies. Just imagine that's your
Right.
currency. I do want to say, Jackie, Melanie left a lovely comment for you. She said, your story's amazing. Thank you for sharing. I'm 52 and a low-come earner. I started getting my head around finances when I did Rebel Finance School last year. It's good to hear what's possible. So it's so wonderful that you share your story, Jackie, because it's inspiring people to hear all these different ways and approaches and people finding out about finances at different ages. So thank you for all the work that you do to inspire people and share.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate and Bill was mentioning, I didn't mention how much I was making, but I was considered a mid to lower income earner. In the US, the magic number would be breaking six figures, making over $100,000. Well, I never made over $100,000. I was making between $60,000 and $90,000 a year, you know, as a single mom. And I wasn't trying to climb the corporate ladder to try to make more and more money. And of course, I wanted to spend time with my daughter. So the choices that I had was that, okay, since I don't want to use the extra time to try to, you know, make more money per se at that time in my life, I knew I had to do more with the money that I had. And that's why investing became so important to me. The compound growth, getting my money working for me, being smart with where I put my money, taking advantage of all the different accounts that I possibly could. So I was able to get to $1 million when I know that there was plenty of people around me that made more than me that was still living paycheck to paycheck. So it really does matter what you do with the money that you have.
Which will
And
a few
yeah,
people are
and
asking in the chat, how do we invest? How do we get started? Like we'll cover all that
great.
in the course. It's just important to understand the idea of investing rather than just kind of saving all your money in cash and having it in cash accounts in the bank. They're saying like, well, how do I invest and how do I sort out my pensions and things? And just to reassure you, we will be covering all of that in the Rebel Finance School course. Sorry to interrupt.
And those are the types of questions they absolutely should be asking. I think one of the most important characteristics I had early on was curiosity. So if you've got questions this early on, you're in the right place. You know, you're asking the questions, and now you've already signed up for a course where you're going to get all those answers.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Ray,
mean, I
hear the
participated in their
impatience.
course last year, and if you signed up for this in 10 sessions, you're going to be an expert like nobody else in the world. It doesn't take that long, and then you've got to pay it forward and teach others because, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. You are all students that are ready, and you've got these teachers. You will learn to be the teacher for other students, and the education, this is what Alan and Katie, you're trying to do, will compound across the world. That's really the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah, it's really cool to be able to help people and to break it down and give them that simple actionable steps, which I'm really excited to do. Ray's kind of hit the nail on the head and had 5 likes. Ray says, now we're here, the impatience is palpable.
Question for Jackie. What's the book on your desk, Jackie?
Hey, what a great question to ask. Well, a little after this book launched last year, I'm the author of the book Fire for Dummies, which is a very popular line that is under the Wiley brand. Wiley is one of the largest publishers in the world. And I learned a lot about FIRE, financial independence, retire early. And I'm just an educator at heart. So when I learn something new, the very first thing I want to do is share it with others. So it's more of a reference book than anything else where you can come back, you can hit certain sections or whatever. But it's been a year since it's been out, a year as of May, as of this month. And it goes from A to Z on, it starts with mindset, like we're starting with right now, knowing where you're starting. And it goes from A to Z on reaching financial independence and creating the option to retire early if you want to. So I'll drop a link to the book, but it is available US, UK, Canada, maybe a few other countries. But that is the book that I authored, and I'm very, very proud of it. And thank you for asking about it.
I
That's
mean, like I
awesome.
said, there aren't that many books you have to read, and J.L. Collins is one, The Simple Path to Wealth, that I would recommend to everybody. I just gave Jackie's book to my nieces. They're 18, they're launching into the
Oh.
world, and I feel very strongly that this book, wherever you are in the world, will also empower you. It's a great companion to this course.
Is it applicable just to the US, Jackie, or other countries as well?
Not just to the US. I remember one section when I was talking about typical retirement age. I did a lot of research on other countries and what is the traditional retirement age. And for most countries, it's around the same age, between like 62 and 67. So and there's, as far as the financial stuff, even if the currency is different, most of the steps are the same. Getting rid of debt, compound growth, learning how to invest, setting up your legacy for the future through estate planning. So your locale, your country, where you're located, there are a few different nuances, but the big picture is still the same. And I guess the one sentence, hopefully everybody's heard some version of this: live on less than you earn and invest the difference. And however you say that in other languages, the concept still remains the same.
Absolutely. The
And
principles of good money management are the same regardless of where you are in the world. And, there'll be
Right.
nuances in the systems and how the tax works and things like that, but the principles are universal,
You mean it
I
even
mean,
works in New Zealand?
especially in New Zealand. Hello, the future.
yeah, hello, Ruth out there, a friend of mine down in New Zealand. And the other
Absolutely.
number you want to remember, once you calculate your monthly expenses, is multiply them by 25, and that's your FI number. That's your goal. That's you're shooting for that. There's a few simple rules in the FI space because you're going to learn about something called the 4% rule, where if you pull 4% of your portfolio every year, you're never going to run out of money. Now, people are fearful. I'm going to end up under a bridge eating dog food. No, calculate your FI number after you calculate where you are, and take the principles that Katie and Alan are going to give you and apply them, and then you will mathematically reach your goal.
What?
And you know, it's an example is helpful, so I'm gonna just throw this out there. So 25 times your annual expenses. So if you spend 50,000 a year, you multiply that times 25 and you get 1 million. So it's just that simple. And I think one thing that drew me to the FI community was the simplicity of it all.
What is financial independence?
Financially, it would be when you get to the point where you're 25 times your expenses. However, broadly, it's where you no longer have to depend on a paycheck from a job in order to live. You've created enough of a nest egg where you can pull off that nest egg to be able to pay your bills and all of your expenses. So that was critical for me before I retired because people will ask the number, how do I know when I can retire? Normally they'll say, well, the job tells me I can retire at this time, or Social Security tells me I can retire at this time, or society says this, and that. But you have to look at yourself and say, at what point do I no longer have to depend on this job for money? Because I've created a nest egg. And that is a powerful place to be. It doesn't even mean that you have to retire. It just means that if you need to walk away, or if you get laid off of your job or you get fired in the US right now, there's a lot of federal government workers where it's working for the government has been considered one of the most secure jobs you can ever have. And that's changed this year, where a lot of federal government workers were let go, they were fired, maybe they were given severance, maybe not. That shocked a lot of people because they were depending on the paycheck because they were used to it being such a secure thing in their life. But things change quickly. And to get to that financial independence place to where you no longer have to depend on that job to get your paycheck, um, it's a powerful number to know and when you reach it or how long it's going to take you to get there.
And everybody's retirement looks different because personal finance is personal. You'll hear it over and over and over again. There's different forms of financial independence. You can reach something called Koski, where if you get to a number that by 65, if you just allow that to compound, you'll be able to retire. You're at Koski, and you could potentially stop saving and putting into your retirement. There's, lean fi, where it's 20 times your expenses. There's fat fi, where it's 30 times your expenses. Everybody's number looks different. For me, I may work 1, 2, 3, 4 shifts a month for the structure. And if you earn $40,000 in a year, you just created $1 million portfolio. So you can still work. We're all going to work. It's not just about stopping. There's the hard sides of retirement and then the soft sides. We all are driven to work. What are you going to do after you reach that number? You don't want to end up depressed, sitting on the couch, watching Netflix. It's not about that, but it is about living your best life. And look at Jackie. She turned into a certified financial planner, and she went from a corporate job to passionate about education across the US and across the world. And then she joined me on this podcast, and we have a worldwide audience. This is part of my retirement plan too. I'm not going to retire on it. It doesn't earn the money to do so, but we cover our costs.
That's wonderful. You absolutely need something to do that's fulfilling and gets you out the house in quote unquote retirement. There's a couple of YouTube comments I love to read out. One from Debo says, Jackie and Bill are the reason I took Rebel Finance School seriously when I did it last year. Seeing people who got late starts and that are not 20 was very inspiring. Although I agree that Jackie looks 20 because her complexion is amazing.
Well,
She is amazing.
You told us before the call, guys, that 64% of your audience is over 45.
Correct.
So you guys are among your people. Make some friends, join the journey together. Consider, if you're over 45, if you like, joining us in the Catching Up to 5 Facebook group. We have over 17,000 people that share ideas and get information from the experts out there, like J.L. Collins, who's in the group, like Bill Bengen, who's the father of the 4% rule. So we mix it up with experts that will answer your questions, and it's okay to be a newbie.
And just so everyone knows, I'm 46, so I just about make it into our bracket now. I'm definitely not 20, and I definitely don't have Jackie's amazing complexion.
I do want to, Josie is watching on YouTube, and Josie says 60 today. And is Josie too late to start? That was the question.
No, absolutely not. I mean, hopefully Josie has a secure job. It depends on where she starts. But like we talked about, it can be a 10-year runway. I'll give them the example of my mom. She was earning $50,000, $60,000 as a nurse, and she went from 55 to FI at 70. And she's now 87, and she's been financially independent for 17 years. So absolutely, Josie, kudos to you for waking up and being here. You are a bright light in this space, and you're going to lead other 60-year-olds forward with you.
And I think
Yes, kudos.
I'd like to add that the person that you will become in 10 years' time will think you are a spring chicken right now.
Right. That's so
Like,
true.
whatever age you are, in 10
Right.
years' time, you're like, oh, I quite enjoyed being that age I am now. Like things ached a little bit less. I moved a little bit faster. Things worked a little bit better. I had a few less sleep injuries. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but after 40, I started getting sleep injuries. It was like waking up hurting, and I'm like, how did that happen? But the person that you will be in 10 years will think you're young now.
Right.
And the other second piece of that is time is going to pass no matter what you do.
Right.
So
So
would you
important.
like to get on top of your finances, or would you just like to let time pass and you'll be 10 years older in 10 years' time and you won't have done anything about it?
Well,
So we
that's why
really
you
did
can't
say,
just
let's
that's
do
why
it.
you can't just focus on the number. I mean, there's Peter Attia that talks about health span, and you have to concomitantly with working on your numbers and your finances, maintain or work on your health, because there can be a big gap between you get to your number, but you can't do anything that you plan to do if you haven't taken care of your body, as you say, Alan.
Yes, and I definitely need to take better care of my body other than eating M&S biscuits in the UK, which I've been very enjoying recently. So I'm going to eat less biscuits and have more salad in the future, so I'm bouncing around with energy.
I did want to address something from Chrissy. Chrissy said even the low examples of income that people have been talking about are more than they earn. So what would you say to that, Jackie? Is this just, what about people on low incomes? Is it possible to make improvements with your finances?
Yeah, it's definitely always possible to make improvements. Now, depending on the level of income, whether or not those things will lead to financial independence, it does take a certain, basic income to be able to get there, but improvements are always possible. And some of the audiences I enjoy talking to the most are people that are in poverty, that are low income, that have really never had the discussion about what it looks like to climb out of poverty into middle class and starting to learn this stuff because they're just as smart as anyone else. And I get the question all the time, well, I'm paying my bills and I could barely make ends meet. There's no way I can save anything. And the advice that I give to those people, which is something I was doing and didn't even realize it, but at least start to build the savings muscle. So if you've got $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, don't worry about the amount. It's the habit and creating that muscle because as you make more, you will spend more. And if you're at a low income, is that a permanent state? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no, it's not a permanent state. I'm going back to school. I'm learning this skill. I'm getting another job. I have a side hustle. So the idea of, and thank goodness, me growing up in poverty, that I at least understood that it didn't have to be like that. Now, I never knew I'd make the movement that I made, but knowing that, hey, I'm not always going to be in this position. So there's that big important question. Okay, what are you doing to change it? And a good answer could be, I'm learning more about money. I'm taking Rebel Finance School, the classes. I'm listening to this podcast of really smart people. I'm joining this club. I'm reading this book. those are things that will help move the needle. Because I believe, knowledge is power. What you learn is a part of how you move forward. It doesn't have to always mean you need a ton of seed money. Sometimes the seed money is your education.
Yeah, tell your story about the $2 bill, Jackie. You've got a bunch of $2 bills there,
Yeah.
and tell
There's my
people.
two.
Go ahead, tell
Yeah.
them the story.
So when I mentioned $2 bills, so I grew up in poverty, but when I was 16, I got my first job while I was in high school, and I felt very independent at this point because I had my own money coming in. But I go to the bank and I cashed my check. At the time, we had paper checks; you had to cash it. And the teller gave me back a $2 bill. And I got that $2 bill and I thought it was special. So I held on to that $2 bill. And every time after that, I would cash my check. I would ask if they have a $2 bill and I would hold on to it. So that was sort of my little stash. And I continued to do this. I was building this habit, right? I continued to do it all through college. I was a poor college kid, but I was still saving those $2 bills. When I became an adult, I still saved them. And when my daughter, I think she was like 9 or 10 years old, she's like, Mom, how many $2 bills do you have? I said, I don't know. Let's count them. And out of all these years where I'm collecting all these $2 bills, as I made more, I was getting more $2 bills. By the time I counted them, I had 1,800 $2 bills, which was $3,600. And I realized that even when I thought I had nothing to save, poor kid in high school, poor college kid, I was saving those $2 bills. And it did help me become more comfortable and help saving become more natural and automatic, like I would have never imagined. So now when I do financial literacy workshops, financial education trainings, and things like that, I give away $2 bills, especially like if you're a high school or college student. If I ask a question and you got a great answer, you get a $2 bill. If you ask a good question, you get a $2 bill. So this happens to be one that I ordered from the Department of Treasury in the US, and it is a sheet of 32 $2 bills and uncut sheet. So I framed it. And that reminds me that no matter how small it is, always save something, if only to build the muscle, to get more comfortable with it, and to create the habit. So that's the $2 bill story.
Always start no matter where you are. I think that is a fantastic lesson. Couple of things from me to add to this. Number one, in America, there tends to be slightly higher salaries, and that's a lot of talk about that. But does that mean it doesn't work in the UK? The answer is definitely no. It definitely works in the UK. There is an entire financial independence movement in the UK. We are part of it. We've used these things, and it created a massive impact in our lives, enabling us to get on top of our finances. So this works in the UK.
And to build on that as well, financial independence is great, retirement is great, but it's not even necessarily about that. It's about getting on top of your money. It's about making progress. It's about paying down debt. It's about just being in a better position than you were yesterday, than you were a week ago, than you were a year ago. It's just about making those small incremental improvements, and you'll be amazed where you end up. So the goal does not have to be quitting work in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. It could just be, look, I really want to be stable and understand where my money's going and know that I'm saving slowly for retirement over the decades or over the next 5 years, whatever it is. So it doesn't have to be this big grand goal of getting to full financial independence.
The second bit I'd love to add is one of the concepts Katie and I talk about all the time is creating a gap between your income and your expenditure. And it's all about the size of the gap. And you can do that in two ways. Number one is reducing your expenditure, spending less, canceling Netflix, buying one Greg's less each week, whatever it is, or increasing your income. Spending less has a flaw. There is a certain amount where you go, I can't spend anywhere less because I need rice and beans to eat. I need to sleep somewhere. Like there are certain costs you can't get rid of. And we're going to look at how do you spend less, but there is a flaw to that. And the other side is increasing your income. And the fascinating bit about increasing your income is there is no ceiling to how much you can earn. Now, lots of people will say, like, I earn what I earn. That's it. I can't improve my situation. But there are so many people that have. And Katie and I have been doing the tour of the UK recently. We've had 29 meetups in 60 days. We've met nearly 3,000 of you around the country, which has been phenomenal. And one lady came up to me so excited when we first met her, and she's like, Alan, it worked. I'm like, what worked? What did you do? And she said, I did it. On your earning more workshop, which we're going to share with you, it's 10 ways to earn more money. It's on YouTube. You can watch it now. You said, you said ask for a raise. I did it and it worked. And then I waited 6 months and I did it again and it worked. And I've got 2 pay rises this year and I've increased my income. And she was just blown away. And I just wanted to say, if you don't think you can reduce your expenditure anymore, let's work together to figure out how you can increase your income as well, because you've got plenty of ways to get ahead with this stuff. And that's what we really want to do with you.
You gotta be careful with lifestyle creep. That's where I got lost. And I would when my income went up, I would spend it. Part of the thing there is to put it aside. You could maybe spend 10 or 20% more on raising your lifestyle, but a lot of it or most of it should go towards, raising your wealth.
Some people are saying, but I work for the government. There's no chance of asking for a pay rise.
Yeah, that may be true. There's all these little nuances, and I can say that the job that I was working, I was not good at asking for raises. I would get like 2 to 3% like cost of living raises, and I was not good at negotiating my salary. When I was close to leaving, I got better at it, but it was too late. So work with what you have. If you've got the good stable job, at the government and there's no chance of an increase because of the system, then work outside of the system. Is there a side hustle? Is it like for me, while I was still working my job, I decided I was interested in financial education. So I started doing workshops, I wrote a book. I just started doing things that I loved because work was less stress and I felt like there was not a lot of movement there. And so there will always be little nuances. So that's when your curiosity and creativity will come into play. Okay, I can't move this needle, but what other needles can I move? And I remember feeling that a lot when I was listening to a lot of the early FI people. A lot of what they were saying didn't apply to me because I had a different family makeup. I was a divorced single mom that came from poverty, and the people that were talking about FI were highly paid engineers that were, had no kids, 2 high income earners. And so there's certain things I couldn't do just like them. So I had to start figuring out, how do I make the adjustments for the way my life is right now?
I love that, Jackie. I love the way that you're focused on what can I do, what can I learn from these people,
Right.
rather than why it wouldn't work for you. I'm not a high earner. I don't have a partner that I have double income from, and all these things. And I think often it's sort of natural human nature to focus on those things, the things that might be stopping us. And I think that's a real lesson for all of us that you've done, us to focus on, okay, what can I do, and what tools do I have, what resources do I have?
Yes.
And that's kind of hard to do. It is really hard when all the messaging you're seeing is negotiate your salary, do this, do that. It almost gets exhausting and you feel a little beat down, like, I can't do that. So once you kind of step back.
Katie and
Yeah.
Alan are here to inspire you. They talk about, and they've been on our podcast a couple times, they talk about living an extraordinary life. And this is what it's really about. Money is a tool, and you'll learn how to use that tool. You'll learn how to save that tool. But don't forget to live an extraordinary life. And I don't know any more positive people in this world. And I always get charged up when I'm in the same room with Alan and Katie. You will get so charged up, you are going to make those changes. You will overcome those blocks, those mental blocks. Who's your worst enemy? Yourself. And you're going to learn how to beat yourself and get on this journey.
Yes, we don't recommend actually beating yourself. I think, Phil, we're not talking about that.
And actually, on Sunday, the 1st of June, we are doing a session all about these things that you feel might be holding you back. You know, I'm on a low income, I can't increase my earnings, I'm single, my partner's not on board, all these things that we feel like are holding us back. We're going to go through those systematically one by one and talk about whether those, how to kind of overcome those things and how to move forward and how to kind of shift your thinking to think about how it might be possible.
Exactly. Changing focus slightly, we had a question from the audience. Is Jackie still single? Hashtag asking for a friend.
That's so funny. Well, look, I'll say, send me a picture afterwards and we'll talk.
Oh, where should they send the pics, Jackie?
Get it through Katie and Alan.
No, Jackie is on the market. If that's what you're asking, I know for a fact she's on the market.
Oh, he thinks because he's my co-host that I tell him everything, but I don't tell you everything, Bill.
Oh,
There's a reason why we haven't talked for a week.
Oh,
Oh,
there you go, hot off the press. So what I'd love to know from both of you, Bill and Jackie, like, why we talk about like now is a great time to start, but why is it actually an advantage to be later on in the journey? Like, is it actually in people's advantage if they're starting 50s, 60s, 70s, or where they're starting? Or like, should we just give up?
no, I firmly believe that it's an advantage. You know, you've lived life, you've made a lot of mistakes, you've learned a lot, and you will, as Jackie said, once you get started, you will be amazed at how fast you go because of your life experience. And you've had experiences. You know, with my kids, yeah, the money may have gone out the window, but it wasn't for no good reason. I mean, we traveled, we had experiences with them, a lot of memories. You know, we didn't eat rice and beans. And our kids, we enjoyed travel with them. We enjoyed travel soccer. We, you know, just you can't forget that along the way. So, I mean, you have had a lot of life. You are now able to frugal down. We downsized, for example. That's a big lever. We had the big doctor house and we went to a smaller house. We paid cash for lower expensive cars. We took care of the big rocks, as you'll hear from Katie and Alan. And those big decisions really escalated everything. It was like a saving snowball. You'll talk about the debt snowball and how to pay it off, but and then you turn that into a saving snowball. And you know, being an empty nester made a big difference for us too. There are lots of superpowers.
That's fantastic. So what we would love is everyone, please, to put in the chat why now is the best time to start for you. So if you're watching on YouTube Live, if you're watching here in Zoom, why is now the best time to start for you? We want to know why you think that. And then I'm going to ask Jackie and Bill for their closing remarks.
and if you're watching on catch up, please put in the comments, why is now the best time for you to start to get on top of your money?
And I love these comments because it's never
Yeah,
too late.
I love to see
Because
them roll
now is the
in.
only time to start, because so I can retire in 10 years. I love that.
If I don't do it now, then when would I?
I want back my time. It's never too late.
No.
Now I'm alive and healthy. I love that. Yes, if you're breathing, it's you can do this.
What else have we got? I didn't do it yesterday, so now is the best time. So I can retire in 10 years. Why
I
not?
love these.
If not now, then when? I'm feeling ready. I can see it's possible. I've put it off for too long. Now is the time.
I can leave my kids a legacy.
Look at the comments. Look at the comments pour in, because you know, the money is one thing, but the best part about learning the money for me was the community. It was jumping into the people. I've met Alan and Katie in person. I've experienced that in-person energy. They're doing these meetups. You can create your own groups where you are. You can join Facebook groups. The journey is not a lone wolf or a solo journey. Now that you're on this, you're going to meet so many cool people, and that, you know, that compounded exponentially for me. Heck, about 80% of my friends are in this community that I see occasionally at meetups, but that I live with online all the time. So take advantage of that. I would say in closing, you know, get your money right, but enjoy the people you learn along the way.
Yeah, and remember, a group is two or more. You don't need 20 people to show up. Every week, me and Bill have a party when we record our podcast. That's two people and a guest, and we have a party. So don't think that you have to draw all these people to you. Sometimes it's just one or two people that will make your group, call it accountability partner, whatever you want to call it. But we've got hundreds of people here today that will continue going through the sessions together, going through the classes, and that's your group. So I guess my closing remarks would be very simple. Um, it's never too late to start. And once you start, keep going. Like, don't give up. Even if the progress you made was that you read a blog post or that you listened to a podcast and you finally understood what compound growth really is, that's progress. So just keep it moving. Don't give up.
Yeah, you can reach what we call the boring middle. Once you get all this knowledge, you come out of it all fired up, you get everything set up, and you're like, well, why isn't it happening faster? Well, it's a math problem, and it's not going to happen maybe as fast as you want. There's a great song out there, I think, called The Boring Middle. And if you haven't heard the Revolutionaries sing, Alan and Katie's album, you've got to go to Spotify. And what's the name of the album they can search to get inspired?
Money Revolution by the Revolutionaries. I'll put it in the chat.
So we have a whole album for that. People are saying would love to meet up with people. Are there London groups or is Rebel around? Is there a financial independence group? There are many groups. Bill and Jackie have a fantastic Facebook group. There is the Rebel Finance School Facebook group where you'll find a huge number of people. Katie and I have been doing a tour around the UK and we have a few dates left. I think we're coming to Belfast, Dublin, Brighton, West London, Audley Edge tomorrow night if you happen to be near Manchester and a few other places. So if you want to hang out. But in general, what we're looking to do is stop money from being a taboo subject and help us to actually talk about it and work together improving on our finances, because it is never too late to make an improvement on your finances, take a next step to sorting out your finances. And I'm
Now,
so excited that you've all come along to this.
Alan, one other quick thing, a great resource is Choose FI. They have a search tool where you can search for communities all around the world. So I put that in the chat, but it's just choosefi/community. And it's not just the US, all around the world. So there is someone likely meeting in person. It doesn't have to be in person. You could do it on Zoom. And like Bill said, we have a Facebook group. The Donovans have a Facebook group. There's a lot of them out there. And if you place yourself around other smart people, the hope is that they are plenty of people that are smarter than you. And that's how you learn and grow. If you're the smartest person in the room, then you need to find a different room.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So this has been like the first session of the Rebel Finance School. It's like preparing for it, and we wanted to tackle that. It's too late for me, and really get us fired up and getting going. We have a session on June the 1st, which is at 8 p.m. UK time, which is tackling all of the biggest barriers to sorting out your finance. And then the Rebel Finance School session 1 starts on the 2nd of June, Monday night, because Monday night is finance night.
I love Mondays, Money Mondays, and we're so excited to have you. And if you haven't signed up for the course, you'll find the link to sign up in the description for YouTube. We're really pumped for the course. It's going to be so much fun.
And all you need to do is show up, do the homework and work through the process, and we will figure this out together. So please show your appreciation for Bill and Jackie from Catching Up to Fi. Thank you so much for coming along. There's some silent clapping in the video. There's some YouTube comments flooding in. We have loved having you here and we love your energy. And thank you so much for being this huge part of what we're doing. It was so nice to have you here.
Well, it's our pleasure to be here. And I would encourage, in closing, everybody that's already in the group to invite 10 people to come and exponentially increase the number of people that get the benefit from this class.
Yeah, ditto on that. And it was great hanging out with you guys. You know, we love you guys. And I always feel so much better when I'm in an audience, a global audience, and I hear all the accents. So this was so great. Great way. And we got to say, Bill, today is Memorial Day in the U.S. And this is where we honor our troops that have gave the ultimate sacrifice. So thank you and appreciation for all of our veterans and all of our service members.
I love that. What a great message. Thank you to everyone for coming on YouTube. You are amazing. We love you, YouTubers. If you could hit subscribe and like, we would love that. And then you will get notified about every upcoming course session. And the like just makes Katie and I feel better. So, you know, if you want to do that, that would be lovely. If
It
not,
helps people to find the channel as well and to reach more people, which is what we're all about.
exactly. So, YouTubers, good night. Thank you for coming. You are wonderful. Okay, we have ended the YouTube stream. So